It's Wednesday, July 29th. I'm Rob.
I'm Will.
And you're watching Political Lunch.
Welcome back to The Lunch. Lots of political news to report today, and not all of it's boring, which is to say it's not all about health care reform. 3.5 words, 2.5 words we'll be happy to eliminate from our vocabulary just as soon as the bill is passed, which looks more or less likely today, depending on who you ask, but more on that later.
First up today, count it a sure thing. Supreme Court nominee Sonia was confirmed yesterday by the Senate Judiciary Committee by a vote of 13-6. And as it turns out, South Carolina's Lindsey Graham was the only Republican senator to vote for Sotomayor.
Next week, the full Senate will vote on the nomination, and it's almost impossible at this point to imagine that she won't be confirmed. She will become the 111th member of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Next up to Iraq, where the Secretary of Defense Robert Gates yesterday announced that some U.S. troops will be heading home ahead of schedule.
Gates arrived in Iraq on Monday to meet with U.S. military commanders there for a briefing on the security situation 1 month after American troops withdrew from most major Iraqi cities. And apparently he liked what he saw, telling reporters that there's a chance for moderate acceleration of the troop withdrawal timetable.
Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, there are currently 14 U.S. combat brigades in Iraq. The plan calls for withdrawal of 2 of those brigades, each comprised of 3,000 to 4,000 soldiers, by the end of the year. Gates said the relatively calm situation now could make it possible to withdraw 1 additional brigade.
But it's not all good news out of Iraq. Right now, the biggest obstacle is the escalating feud between Arab Iraqi leaders and Iraqi Kurds in their semi-autonomous region in northern Iraq. In recent weeks, U.S. troops have literally had to position themselves between the two groups to prevent violence.
So what are they fighting about? Oil, of course. Kurds want their region expanded to include oil fields in Kirkuk. The Shiite-led central government obviously disagrees, and the U.S. is stuck in the role of peacemaker with no agreement on the horizon.
Now, another unresolved issue, whether or not the U.S. should sell fighter jets to Iraq, which as of now has no Air Force. Iraqi leaders say they'll be vulnerable when the U.S. completes its withdrawal.
Now, it looks likely that some U.S. Air Force planes and pilots will need to remain in Iraq after ground forces pull out, but the Iraqis have also asked for a few brand spanking new F-16s of their own.
Now, aside from the fact that we can't build them in time and the Iraqis couldn't afford them, even if we could, do we really want to go selling fighter planes to a nation whose leaders may or may not be giving us the one-fingered peace sign in the rearview mirror?
Well, at this point, we don't have much of a choice. U.S. commanders in Iraq agree that the ability to conduct defensive air patrols is critical in maintaining security after American forces leave. One idea, loan Iraq a few older F-16s, although General Oderno said, "We're not sure that's legal. We'll have to check with Congress."
Now, one idea we had, remember those shiny new F-22s that we've never used and probably never will because, among other things, they can't fly in the rain? Last week, Congress voted to discontinue that program, but we've still got the planes, 187 of them to be exact, and it hardly ever rains in Iraq. We're just saying.
Finally today, because it is the biggest story going and we just can't ignore it, regardless of how much you probably wish we would at some point, health care reform. Will it pass, and will it include that much talked about government insurance option?
Now, that option was, of course, the crux of President Obama's plan. He says a government-run health insurance plan will increase competition and efficiency in the private health insurance business. His opponents say, socialism, socialism.
And now a staffer for Senator Max Baucus blabbed about this over email, saying that a number of significant policy issues have yet to be discussed by the committee, and that neither an agreement nor an announcement is imminent.
But maybe he was just playing the time-honored political game of lowering expectations, as his counterparts in the Republican Party are sounding, well, dramatically more upbeat.
Senator Chuck Grassley, one of 3 Republicans on that committee, said that a bill will be finalized and sent to members of the Senate by the weekend.
But as for that public insurance option, well, it's looking like at least the Senate Finance Committee has cooled on that idea, favoring now instead a system of nonprofit health co-ops to compete with the private insurance system.
So we'll have an update on that plan and all the other political news you need to know on Friday.
Thanks very much for watching Political Lunch. We'll see you here on Friday.